Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and just things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. The podcast is sponsored by the scuba diving giant Scuba Pro, who manufacture a wide range of diving equipment for entry-level scuba divers experiencing the underwater world for the first time to advanced technical divers and professional scuba divers as well. I'll talk more about Scuba Pro later on in this podcast. Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast. This week, an underwater nuclear missile silo is back and open for business for scuba diving again. Good results are coming from the Seagrass Replanting project in Plymouth. There's also a conference in November for anybody who's interested in historical diving. They look quite interesting. Military scuba divers helped clean up some nasty ghost gear over in the States. Hurgada has some new wrecks for divers to explore in their waters, and the search for a missing scuba diver has been called off. So the first news story is that, the underwater nuclear missile complex is back and open for business. This is actually a viewer who messaged me and said that, hey, we're planning on reopening it, and it is exciting news. So this is a exclusive source to dive the abandoned Titan 1 ICBM complex near Royal City in Washington, and it is back open for business. So you can head over to underseasadventure.net, and or I'll just pop a link down in the description so that you can head over to there. But you can go scuba diving in there. It's one of those that I think they said that it was in National Geographic as one of the top 100 dives because it's just so unique. It is basically an old abandoned nuclear missile or ICBM missile silo, and it's flooded, but you can go scuba diving in it, which is pretty cool. They do a all-day experience if you want. It'll cost you $350 or just $349 for 2 tank dives, and that include dives in Launcher 3, Equipment Terminal 3, and Launcher 2, plus lunch and a tour of the dry side of the complex. And it's really cool. It's just one of those unique dive sites that you have to experience at least once in your diving career. And prerequisites are just advanced certification or higher, photocopy of your cert cards, recent cold water dives, because it's underground. It can get quite dark, so it's quite important for you to have experience with a bit more exposure protection. Night diving as well. You're going to need to bring a light and a backup because it's underground. There's no natural light down there, so you have to bring your own. They do say it's worth being in quite good physical shape. There's a bit of a walk and it's moderate difficulty. So, you've got to be reasonably fit. How they describe it is, we begin in the high desert plateau of eastern Washington, overlooking the Columbia River. As they drive through the middle of what looks like a steel scrapyard of rusting farm machinery and other derelict equipment, a massive concrete launch door appears, then 2 more identical ones. Next, a massive ravine dug by a zealous farmer opens before you. Driving down into this man-made canyon, they stop at a huge mangled tube erupting from the depths. This is the entrance to the Titan 1 complex. We set up our gear on large wooden decks by the entrance. Extra bottles, lights, fins, masks, and various cameras and miscellaneous gear are lowered down into the hole. Most divers opt to wear their assembled scuba unit down the ladder, but they can be lowered by rope. If you're diving a twin set, you'd probably prefer that option. Let me just turn the sound off. At the base of the access tube is the ready room. This is the staging area for the dive. Several large benches line the walls of the room, allowing plenty of space to get your gear assembled. Once everyone is geared up and checks are complete, the walk to the launch silo begins. The tunnels leading to the launcher areas of the silo complex have been ravaged by salvagers in the 1960s when the base was decommissioned and sold off. Deck plates on the tunnel floors have been removed, leaving a network of large pipes, valves, and occasional beams to walk on. Water fills the tunnels up to about waist level, which is perfectly fine for our scuba diving needs. Inflating BCs is a must on this walk, along with listening to the person in front of us so that they call out any obstacles. A kayak makes the trip with us to carry all loose items like fins and cameras a little bit easier. After a couple of turns and tunnel junctions, we reach the area where we do our final gear up for the dive. Fortunately, the deck plates are in place here, giving us a smooth and even floor for final preparations. Moving into the launch silo, we pass through a rather normal looking double doorway. Judging by the doors, you'd never know you're about to enter a 160-foot tall chamber that once housed a ballistic nuclear missile. To the right, a 24-inch wide plank leads across the now empty elevator shaft that service the different levels of the crib work, so you do need to watch your step here. The bottom of the shaft is 110 feet straight down, another reason why the BCDs need to be inflated to make sure that you don't just go straight down. They're now standing on massive steel crib work that lifted the 100-foot, 110-ton ICBM, the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, to the surface for launch. It has waited in the pitch black darkness for almost 50 years. Now you're in the heart of the complex, standing on a platform extending out to the missile silo, mere inches from where the massive Titan 1 ICBM once stood at ready. Looking over the edge, you can see the steel structure disappearing at the limits of your flashlights. The water is clean groundwater, so it's fresh, but it is cold, obviously, seeping in since the Air Force turned the pumps off in the early 60s. Masks on, regulators in, vent the air from your BCD, and you begin to descend into Cold War history. So, yeah, very cool. I'm going to see if I can head over there. I'm just going to work it out with my calendar and everything. This has always been on my bucket list to dive in one of these missile silos. So yeah, if you are interested, head over to underseasadventures.net. Work on England's largest seagrass restoration effort continues in Plymouth Sound National Marine Park under the Life Recreational Remedies project. So Life Recreation Remedies is a £2.5 million 4-year marine conservation project to save our seabed at 5 special areas of conservation in southern England through seagrass restoration, education and innovation. It's funded by the Life Programme and led by Natural England in partnership with Ocean Conservation Trust, Marine Conservation Society and the RYA, the Royal Yachting Association, as well as Plymouth City Council. And the Ocean Conservation Trust, the restoration lead in the project, have deployed 100 seagrass pillows into the restoration site at Jennycliff Bay, which each contain about 40 healthy seagrass plants and a few like boosters. I think they're called rhizomes. This latest effort covers 2,500 square meters of the seabed with all these little pillows and seagrass to give it a real good seeding surface so that it continues to grow and create a vitally important habitat. To restore seagrass, OCT had to hand collect seagrass seeds from healthier meadows elsewhere, plant them into sand on 100% biodegradable mats made from cotton and hessian, and then build up these little pillows and then relocate them to try and promote growth in the area again. So after a year, Amelia Newman, the Remedies Seagrass Cultivation Lead at the Ocean Conservation Trust, said that it was exciting to be underway with this round of seagrass planting. It's always a big team effort and we're lucky to be supported by local stakeholders. We were overjoyed to see how well the seagrass we planted last year is doing. It's a real win, not only for the project, but for seagrass and the environmental benefits that it brings us all. So well done to everyone who's involved in that project. It makes a huge difference to bring back these seagrass beds, and yeah, hopefully with more and more divers helping and more and more people on the top side as well, yeah, they'll continue to flourish. If you're interested in diving history, military diving, or salvage operations, the annual conference of the Historical Diving Society in November should be on your calendar. The main topics of the speakers' presentations this year are Special Forces divers and salvage diving in World War II German submarines. Mike Wellham, whose latest book, The Combat Divers, An Illustrated History of Special Forces Divers from World War II to the Present, will talk about the military divers of several nations, but mainly the British Royal Navy divers. As a former Royal Navy Marine Commando, his expert knowledge on the subject gives a riveting talk. His book will also be available to purchase at the conference. There will also be several other speakers from Poland, from Denmark, and other countries around the world, just giving presentations on military and just nautical scuba diving or just diving history. Tickets will cost £40, and that includes a lunch, refreshments, and free parking. The parking, though, is on request and it's subject to availability, so you do have to check first. It's an informal social event that's open to everyone and anyone who has an interest in diving. Tickets and full details of the conference, the speakers, and the program can be found on the Historical Diving Society website, which I'll link down in the description below. So, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, I'm going to talk briefly about Scuba Pro. Scuba Pro was founded in 1963 by Gustave Delaveille and Dick Bonin, and in 2023 they see their 60th anniversary, and Scuba Pro is stronger than ever. Today, Scuba Pro is a global brand, and you'll find them around any dive site or dive boat because scuba divers around the world just trust Scuba Pro as a brand. I personally have never had a problem recommending any Scuba Pro dive equipment to anyone asking. I used it whilst I was scuba diving and teaching, and so did all of my students as well. They were using Scuba Pro equipment, and no matter where you are in the world, it won't be hard to find a service center because they're located all over the world. The divers are Scuba Pro's inspiration. Every product, every enhancement, every decision, everything that they do is designed to make your diving experience the best that it can be. Because without this blue planet of divers eager to explore, their innovations mean nothing. And Scuba Pro want to thank you for being part of their journey and for being their inspiration for the future. They are so excited to share their latest innovations with you. The best is yet to come. A few big things this year have been the Ulex range of wetsuits that use a plant-based foam instead of neoprene, which is better for the planet, and the S-Tech fins, which are a more technical focused fin, a bit of a hybrid between the Seawing Nova and the Jet fin. One really cool feature is that you can actually adjust their buoyancy by adding or removing little metal plates in the fin before the dive. But for more information, head over to scubapro.com. Sticking with military divers, an elite team of 25 US Army divers had spent nearly 4 weeks recovering ghost fishing nets, some of them more than 150 meters long from Puget Sound off the coast of Washington state. The team had been hand-selected from the most experienced and skilled divers because of the hazardous nature of the mission, according to Staff Sergeant Miller. He said that it had taken more than 10 days simply to plan the dive schedule because of the complexity of tides in the Sound. Marine Conservation Joan Drinkwin said that the nets posed a significant hazard to marine life such as Dungeness crab and the listed rockfish in Puget Sound. She said that derelict nets, when they're in this kind of habitat, roll up, damage the reef, damage other animals, and impede access to the habitat for these different species. So it's very important for them to have removed this. But they said that it had been cost prohibitive, especially in terms of the requirement to have a decompression chamber on the site to remove the nets without the Army's help. Through their involvement, the divers earned themselves a military occupational specialty as engineer diver. The unit can be deployed all over the world. Anything a combat engineer needs to do that has to be done underwater, that's what they send us out for, said one of its lead divers, Sergeant Ellis Lopez. We do pier demolition, construction, boat inspection and a lot of recovery and salvage work. The ghost net clearance was carried out in partnership with Washington State Department of Natural Resources as part of the U.S. Department of Defense's Innovative Readiness Training Program. And this is designed to enable divers to train on mission essential task lists, hone their skills, and practice their operations in real world environments while simultaneously helping a state agency accomplish its goal of cleaning up marine habitats. Over here in the UK, volunteers from Ghost Diving UK and Ghost Diving Netherlands combined to lift abandoned trawler net from a wreck lying near St Mary's Lighthouse Nature Reserve off Blyth in Northumberland. The operation was carried out from the boat Spellbinder 2 and started with 3 survey dives. The 33-metre deep steamship Mars was cleared of what was described as a massive net in a day, and the following day a nearby wreck, the HMS Dolphin, had a number of gill nets removed also. The 90-metre Swedish merchant ship the Mars had been carrying wood pulp to London when it was sunk by mines shortly before Christmas in 1939. 7 of the 16 crew died, and the wreck is now very broken. Dolphin was a casualty of the same mines laid by the U-boat U-22, a former liner employed in World War I to service British submarines. It was being towed for use as a block ship in the Clyde, but little now remains of the actual vessel itself, but it was still collecting ghost gear. But now that Ghost Diving UK and Ghost Diving NL, the ghost net collected was taken for recycling through the Journey Blue net collection program in Blyth Harbour, and this initiative started on the 29th of July, the day that another ghost diving project ended, an 8-day expedition involving divers from 5 countries removing ghost gear from World War II shipwrecks in the Mediterranean between Lampedusa Island and Tunisia. So yeah, they're just constantly in the water collecting all of this ghost gear. They're great to follow on Instagram as well. They frequently upload pictures and videos of them doing their work, and it's strangely satisfying seeing the ghost nets just shoot back up to the surface after they've cut it free. So yeah, I always recommend just following them on social media. Over in Egypt, they've taken a leaf from the Book of Jordan and started dumping retired tanks and other military vehicles into the Red Sea to keep scuba divers happy and entertained and away from fragile coral reefs, at least for part of the time. So there's a new artificial reef project that has been 7 years in the planning, and it's now been 4 years since the armed forces transported a number of disused military vehicles to Hurgada, ready for this plan. The COVID pandemic kind of intervened with that and pushed all of the plans back. However, the new underwater museum has been inaugurated. 5 exhibits are being placed in 3 locations off the coast of Hurgada, and it's just something different for divers to look at. They're also trying to give some of the local reefs a bit of a rest, because divers diving it constantly, they're trying to draw them away to look at something else so that the reefs can rest a little bit. So yeah, if you are heading to the area, if you do have a Red Sea liveaboard booked, and it's coming out of Hurgada or heading around to the Hurgada area, then yeah, chances are they're going to make a stop here and you can see some new wrecks. It's kind of the usual APCs, armoured personnel carriers and tanks and things underwater. They've stripped out all the electronics and the fuel and all the oil and nasty stuff, and dropped it into the water. So that scuba divers can dive around it. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of penetration for any of these wrecks. They're pretty small and cramped. It's more just to see them down under the water, and they also act as a bit of an artificial reef, so hopefully some corals will start to grow on it, but also the fish will find it a little bit of shelter. So something new out in the Red Sea. Sad news is coming out of Florida, unfortunately. So the US Coast Guard has called off what had been an intensive 6-day search for scuba instructor and former Coast Guard officer Thomas "Tommy" Falconberry on the 7th of August, pending any new information. The diver had disappeared on the afternoon of the 2nd of August from the shipwreck, the USS General Hoyt S. Vandenberg, 7 miles off Key West. And the Vandenberg is the America's second biggest artificial reef. The 156-meter troop transport and missile tracking ship was scuttled for scuba divers 14 years ago and has a maximum depth of 42 meters. Falconberry, who's 44 from Stock Island, was a dive instructor for Lost Reef Adventures in Key West and was diving from the operator's boat, the Dream Cat. Crew reported to the Coast Guard that he was overdue back from a dive at around 10:13 a.m., some 53 minutes after he had last been seen. According to one of 2 crowdfunding sites set up to help the diver's family, his dive had been undertaken to hang a decompression tank on a line. The Vandenberg site can be subject to quite strong currents, and there has so far been no trace of him after the 6-day search. Sector Key West Coast Guard Commander Captain Jason Ingram said that this was a tragic accident. Diving is an inherently dangerous activity. Mr. Falconberry's passion for the sea is well remembered by the dive community here in the Keys, and my deepest condolences are with his family at this difficult time. Falconberry had himself previously served in the Coast Guard for nearly 20 years. Search and rescue services, including the Coast Guard, US Navy and Army dive teams, the National Guard, Monroe County Sheriff's Office, and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, had spent a combined total of 152 hours covering a search area of about 4,300 square miles, the estimated size of Connecticut, searching for him. But yeah, unfortunately, they have yet to find him and they've had to call off the search. A second GoFundMe site has been set up for Falconberry's 4 sons, ranging in age from 15 to 21, by their mother, who described him as an experienced diver who loved the water. So if you do have any spare money and you do want to help them out, then I'll put a link down in the description below. As far as new scuba diving equipment out there, the only thing that I spotted was that DiveSoft have a pair of new dive computers called the Freedom Plus. So these are quite technical dive computers. DiveSoft make a range of rebreathers, and now they have some dedicated dive computers. But you can use these for open circuit as well, I believe. I haven't had a great look at them, but I just noticed that they were advertised as new. They say the Freedom Plus dive computer is designed for all levels of divers, and its intuitive user interface makes the computer exceptionally easy to use, even for beginner divers. It's color screen dive computer, and yeah, full trimix and everything. They say it's a limited edition. Extended battery life, that's twice as long as their Freedom computer. Bluetooth connectivity for seamless data transfer. Optional upgrade to closed circuit license. Full trimix on the inside. Factory tested down to 350 meters to ensure that the computer can withstand the harshest conditions in every environment. Yeah, I spotted that. I haven't had a great deal of time to look into it. Otherwise, I think that's about it. I had a quick look around the website and social media. I couldn't see anything overly new. I did get a new mask to test out, which is pretty cool. It comes with some of those like defog films on the inside as standard, and so far I've yet to make them fog up. And they also have a treated lens, which is pretty smart. Otherwise, I've been working on a travel video in Palau. Beautiful waters. By the sounds of it, it's quite rainy out there, but as wet as it is on the surface, you get beautiful visibility underwater. So that's coming out on Wednesday. I've also managed to finally film an X-Deep product review. So that will be going live on Saturday, I believe. And I think that's about it. Just things have been taking a lot of time this week. When like a normal project, you're like, oh, okay, this won't take too long, and you turn around and it's Wednesday, and you're like, oh, struth. I think I've just been cleaning up a lot of other projects. I had one that's one video that started I think I started it weeks ago, and then normally when I start a project, it's kind of start to finish, like start to finish. Whereas with this one, I started it and then something else cropped up, so it had to be shelved. And then I got back to it. I did a little bit of work, and then I was looking around, seeing what I can do. And I was like, oh yeah, I can finally finish that one. It's basically a top 10 of when to invest in certain pieces of dive equipment, because I saw a lot of posts online and they're saying, oh, here's the top 3 things that you should buy first, or here's the top 5. I was like, oh, you know what? I do top 10 videos. Why don't I just... And there are a lot of questions of like, should I buy my own cylinder? Do I need to buy my own lead? And I just thought, hey, you know what? It'll be quite interesting just to create a video basically saying that, you know what, most divers tend to buy their own dive knife between this point and that point. It's unusual for divers to turn up on their foundational course with a dive knife, but when you get to like rescue, definitely, they tend to have their own dive knife, so it's kind of around sort of between those points. The mask you can buy the first thing. That's usually everyone's recommendation. Get a mask. Make sure you get a decent mask that fits you. You can turn up for your foundational course with a mask and no one will really sort of think otherwise. And yeah, someone asked a few weeks back whether they should buy a dive computer before their like open water course. And it's like, you can do. It's a bit unusual for a diver to turn up with their own dive computer on their open water, but it wouldn't throw a spanner in the works or anything. If anything, it would be better, because I mean, on dives 1, 2, and 3, most divers don't even look at their dive computer. They're so focused on just the diver in front of them, their fins, making sure that they're doing the right thing, that they're not really thinking about, oh, you know what, I'm wearing this piece of dive equipment on my wrist and it has all this interesting information. They're not really thinking about that. But if you have your own dive computer, you don't have to learn how to use the dive school's dive computer, then buy your own computer and then have to relearn and figure out what it's shouting at you, what's this beeping meaning. Whereas if you have your own computer, then yeah, you learn how it works, you learn the user interface, and you learn what all the little like numbers and digits and icons mean on the screen in the real world, with an instructor there who's going to help you out, instead of just learning to use a rental or a school dive computer. So yeah, that'll probably go live next Saturday, I believe. I think this Saturday is going to be the X Deep gear review, and then the following week it's going to be that top 10. But yeah, that's really what I've been working on this week. Kind of disjointed. Just one of those weeks where I'm just like tidying up some old projects that I'd never got around to. I've got to do all these travel videos, which are good fun. Only you get all of this like stock footage, and you're like, oh, I really wish I could have been there to record this stock footage. But hey ho, such is life. One day I'll make my way out there. Otherwise, remember to like, share, and subscribe, do all that social media stuff. If you're not subscribed to the channel, just double check. A lot of people are probably listening and sort of don't realise that they're not subscribed because I have moved channels. Otherwise, head over to our website, scubadivermag.com, for the latest scuba diving news. Check out our magazine. We've got 3 different magazines, one in sort of the UK and Europe, one in America, and one in Australia and New Zealand. Thank you for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving.